So tonight's the book launch for Robert Verhagen's first novella. Now the reason I know Robert is because he submitted a short story for the first Up and Up Media short story book, my publishing label's first book, which is coming up, I don't know, summer-ish. And then he asked me to MC his book launch. So I came tonight just to sort of show support, and also I've never MC'd a book launch before, so I'm basically just going to watch what the other MCs do tonight and then rip that off when I have to MC the second book launch in a few weeks. Let's go check it out.
How did you come across this story? What is it about this particular story that captured your interest?
That's a great question, because I can really put my finger on the one thing that it was, and that's the title, which I saw in the collected history, which was Murder at the Mountain Rush. I was in the post office one afternoon running a basic errand, and I picked up the collected history to flick through and saw Murder at the Mountain Rush on the page, and I thought, that's a great title. And then dropped off the letters or whatever it was, went back to work, and that kind of stayed with me. And luckily for a website called Trove, which is an online kind of repository of news articles and that kind of thing, they digitise a lot of old records. I jumped on and Googled Murder at the Mountain Rush, and what came up was the original news article which had that title. And from there I really just started reading, and the more I Googled, the more I found. The more I found, the more I wrote. And it's one of those things where it's hard for me to remember what I was thinking at the time, and I don't even think that I had a book, published cover-to-cover book in mind. But I certainly had the story in mind, and it wouldn't go away, and I couldn't forget Murder at the Mountain Rush.
As you were preparing to write the story, how did you go about bringing the story to life for the reader, rather than just presenting it as an historical document? And what did this mean for your writing?
That's the hardest thing, I think, about writing any story, really, especially one that's got a true story behind it, is making it more than just, like you say, reporting facts. And for me, I've got this horrible vice where I have to know that everything I'm saying is true, which isn't easy when there's all these facts. So the more I found out about people, I probably rewrote it about 8 times.
Only 8.
only 8, yeah. It's been a few months. But that was because I would find something else out and I couldn't really sweep it under the rug. I had to include it in the story because I felt like it was kind of doing the person credit, who was living 150 years ago. And so I had to do that. And at some point as well, there were characters I hoped I wouldn't find any more out about them. Luckily, they seem to have dropped off the radar because I would have had to have written more. So for me, I think that the faith to the history is a big risk, but I knew that if I could balance the facts with a little bit of fiction as the glue, I knew that would probably be the best bet in terms of getting a good story across. So I tried that as hard as I could.
Right. Well, it seemed to us that you'd done an enormous amount of research and gone into a lot of detail, which makes the book so much more
that's right. It does help that I enjoyed it as well, which is kind of one thing.
Yeah, we can tell that too. Once you had accumulated all the information you thought you would need, how did you decide how the story should unfold?
Well, as I said, I rewrote it about 8 times. It started very differently. I was saying to someone earlier, because there is a person who was slain in the course of the story, otherwise the title would be a bit meaningless. I kind of began just disclosing who it was. That actually wasn't the most important part of the story to me. What I was kind of using the event to make an example of was. But as it kind of grew, the story grew a little bit more, and I thought the readers might want to not know right off the bat who, of course, the unlucky soul is.
Right.
And the introduction changed a number of times until one day I was driving home from the shops and I was just obsessing about the introduction. It just didn't sound right and feel right. And so I got home, poured a glass of wine, and then rewrote the entire introduction in pen. And that is the introduction that's now in the book. And so in terms of the rewriting and kind of thinking how the story should unfold, it's an absolute patchwork. You will write one part of a story and then months later write the next part. I think people often are curious about how long something like this takes, and if you squish all the time together, it probably only takes 2 months. But it's the time in between the actual writing that I think is the most important.
That's right.
That's when you're thinking about it, dreaming about it, doing the research. That kind of, when you're putting pen to paper, that's basically just your motor skills at work. But I think a lot of the writing is behind the scenes, behind the mental scenes, and kind of obsessing about how you want it to unfold. So I think the first part, if people have an attentive eye, will notice it's a little slower than the second part, because that is what took me the longest time. The second part I wrote almost in one sitting.
Right.
So it kind of comes out that way. But it's just months and months of writing, then thinking, and then going back to the page.
Right. Well, we should say that we're not disclosing too much about this story this evening. So you'll have to read it for yourself.
There will be some people who know the story because it's a part of local history. If you're not from the area, we've done you the courtesy of not telling you who it is. And it's a bit of a sales pitch. Now you've got to read the book. But
of course.
That's right. So we thought the suspense might be a nice thing. But it is definitely ingrained in local history, this story. So.
Yes, it is.
Should old acquaintance be forgot and never brought to mind? Should old acquaintance be forgot and thou lang syne? And surely you'll be your pinester, and surely I'll be mine, and we'll take a cup of kindness, yet far old lang syne. Far old lang syne, my dear, far old lang syne. We'll take a cup of kindness, yet far old lang syne. We tway hid all day in the burn, frae morning sun till dine. Oh, the seas between us spread a roar, seen auld lang syne. We tway haven aboot the braes and put the gowans fine. Oh, we've wandered many a weary fit, seen auld lang syne. Far old lang syne, my dear, far old lang syne. We'll take a cup of kindness, yet far old lang syne. A hand, my trusty fear, gives a hand o' thine, and we'll take a right good while we walk far old lang syne. Far old lang syne, my dear, far old lang syne. We'll take a cup of kindness, yet far old
Truly there is no end to his talent. Thanks for that, Rob, that was really good. And those of us who are old Kinglakers can remember the weekly dance in one of the Kinglake halls, of which there were 3. Someone was always running a dance, and at the end of the dance, Auld Lang Syne would be sung, and everybody would stand around in a circle, link arms and sing to their heart's content.
And if I can mention briefly, when I talked about the newspapers that I read that are long after the story that I wrote, that's where I found the town dances, and it was always capped off with Auld Lang Syne. This is the 1880s and 1890s before World War I. And that's where I got that song, and where the first song was more of a sadder song and it was a sadder ending to begin with. When I came across Auld Lang Syne, it struck me that it should be in the book. It turned the ending to more of a happier ending, and I won't spoil it, but it turned from more of, like I said, sometimes running away seems like the solution, to remembering old times since and remembering community, and that's, I think, where the story ended, and I think it's where the story was always meant to end.
Right. Very good. It'll be a pleasure when you read it, yes. At this point, I would like to say we admire Rob's attention to detail in this work, and we've been pleased to support him in his research. This is the Kinglake Historical Society speaking. We commend Murder at the Mountain Rush as an intriguing tale well told, and we hope it's the first of many more stories presented with such insight and authenticity, and we are delighted to be here to witness the launch of the book. The Kinglake Historical Society wishes to congratulate Rob and to thank him for his efforts to present this piece of Kinglake's history in a way that will reach readers in this community and much further afield. On behalf of the Kinglake Historical Society, I have much pleasure in officially launching The Murder at the Mountain Rush by Rob Verhagen. Congratulations.
Like this time tomorrow-ish, maybe a dozen or 2 dozen people will have read your first book.
Now that you put it like that,
How do you feel about that?
you know, really good. And seeing it in other people's hands is amazing. And especially the number of people that I didn't know tonight was probably the biggest thing for me.
Yeah.
That I saw people who, I mean, a lot of it's because I dropped in their letterbox flyers, which was a big thing. A lot of them said, when I asked them how they knew about the place, oh, we got the flyer in the letterbox. And then they love the history as well, so the combination of the two things. So the fact that they showed a keen interest, and I didn't know them, they're not just my friend or my mother, was, it was awesome.
That's really cool. Yeah, you'd think, well, no, like a first book launch, you don't have a fan base to go off.
Exactly right.
So to have people that you don't know coming to the first book launch, that's it's pretty good effort.
I feel pretty good.
Yeah, nicely done.
Yeah.
You ready for book launch 2 on
so funny,
Tuesday
I mean, I thought...
night? Is it Tuesday night?
Tuesday evening, 7 onwards.
Yeah.
So I thought Kinglake would struggle to keep up with Eltham, because Eltham's cosmopolitan and Kinglake's out in the country, but we've had such a massive turnout, I'm thinking we're going to really do some work to get people along to Eltham as well.
Yeah, this might have been, well, hopefully not the bigger one, but
yeah, well, we hope they
all the seats were full.
Yeah, so I think they put out 70 seats.
Yeah.
And most of them, except for the front row, was filled up.
Yeah.
So it was crazy. As soon as people started arriving, I didn't know what to do with myself. I was spilling drinks and everything. It was crazy.
Were you nervous?
Yeah. Well, no, I think that was more I forgot I had a whiskey in my hand. Maybe that is nervous. But it kind of snuck up.
Yeah.
And like, for example, last night I stayed up on my laptop doing work, looking for jobs to do, and then eventually I kind of realised you got to go to bed. You got nothing else to do. Like I kind of didn't want the process to be done. I wasn't really ready, and the fact that everything kind of went like a well-oiled machine, I was.
Nicely done, man.
I think it was probably after the first reading that the comfort, the nerves settled. Not that they were jittery nerves. It was just hoping everything would go to plan and people would actually like talking about history. You know?
Yeah. No, it was brilliant. It was really good. Cool.
Right, so Eltham, Tuesday night. It's a big thing.
It's going to be good.
We'll mix it up. I'll do a different song for the returnees because there's a couple of people coming back.
Yeah.
And we'll go full author on it.
We're going to just... So I think we'll focus more on, like tonight was a lot about the history behind it and
being
like the rest
Kinglake, of course.
Yeah, but you were talking to a historian and you are a historian, but I think the next one will be more like an author talking to an author.
I think that would be great.
Yeah, which is cool. Different things, so the people go to both. Yeah,
it's right. It would be nice to not be repeating the same kind of talking points.
Yeah.
And there is so much to talk about. I think I underestimated how much content there was. And I suppose when you're talking about your own book, that you can talk for
just keep going.
hours
Yeah,
and hours.
yeah.
But yeah, it was just amazing. The questions, I thought I'd love to keep on going, but before we knew it, it was 8:45. Time runs on, but hopefully then they read the book.
Yeah.
And their questions are answered then. Yeah. I make it almost. I've turned my handwriting into almost illegible now. I'm nearly there. Nearly at the illegible
Keep
phase.
working on it. You.
In case you can't read it, it says fellow author. So.
Nice. Thanks, man.
No worries.